This is the news on top of the hour.
Live from our studio in Georgetown.
Kaieteur Radio, 99.1 FM.
Good day, welcome to your news at noon on Kaieteur Radio. I'm Kevin Smith. Making top story today, UK slaps 25% tax on oil companies to raise $6.3 billion for citizens gripped by cost of living crisis. Guyana is setting bad pattern by spending all its initial oil profits. Analyst says Exxon drilling for oil, Guyana digging fiscal hole. Re-inject gas and save Guyana, energy technologist tells EPA solar should be pursued instead of gas to shore project. Gun and scissors seized at Stink and Dutty show. Carpenter kills engineer and stabs another man with steel rod. Meanwhile, West Berbice man kills himself after stabbing ex-girlfriend. Get the full details of these stories and more after the break.
Experience more than award-winning speed.
Way more.
Get the best that LTE has to offer on Digicel, officially the fastest mobile network in Guyana. Ookla, the company behind Speedtest, recognizes Digicel as the best mobile network in Guyana. With the best LTE experience and the fastest data speeds, experience it all with Digicel. Better together.
And now for the news in detail. The UK government has announced that it will introduce a windfall tax on oil and gas operators, which could raise $6.3 billion in the first 6 months, which will then be used to alleviate the cost of living crisis in the country. A windfall tax is a one-off tax imposed by a government on a company, specifically targeting those that benefit from something they were not responsible for. In this instance, the huge profits gained by oil and gas companies in the UK is due to a sharp increase in oil and gas prices following Russia's invasion of Ukraine. The UK government said the purpose of this tax is to distribute excess profits made by oil companies for the greater social good. The windfall tax comes as oil and gas giants like Shell and BP booked record profits in the first quarter of this year, driven by a spike in oil and gas prices. Meanwhile, the associated gas from oil production should be re-injected to save Guyana from further damage to the environment. This is the view of former UG lecturer and past representative of the Transparency Institute Guyana Inc., Mr. Alfred Boulay, who has suggested in a letter to the EPA that solar power be pursued instead, as this option could be at least 5 times cheaper than a proposed gas-to-energy project. Boulay, who holds a degree in applied chemistry and engineering, sent his submission to the EPA yesterday. Currently, there is a 60-day period where members of the public can share their views and concerns or even questions regarding the project, which must be addressed before an approval is granted by the regulatory body. In other news, Guyana is bent on the development of much-needed infrastructure and has dedicated the first haul of its oil profits to this year's budget to assist with the financing of its many projects. Already issuing some precaution on unsustainable oil-reliant spending because of market volatility, the Institute for Energy Economics and Financial Analysis is also pointing the country to keep gauge on its internal affairs as it begins to expend oil profits. The Institute submitted in one of its recent assessments on Guyana's oil sector that the country already seems to be mismanaging its funds and setting a bad precedence on how future spending of oil money will be conducted. The concern is raised because spending of the oil money should improve the country's financial position by, among other things, helping to lower its debt and budget deficit. And moving on. The Guyana Police Force has reported that it seized a firearm, knives, scissors, and other weapons from persons who attended the Stink and Dutty Juve, which was held at the National Park in Georgetown on Saturday night. The police reported that at around 2 hours 30 on Sunday, a police rank on duty at the show, which was hosted by Hits and Jams Entertainment, observed 2 males who were fighting outside of where the show was being held. Upon approaching the men, a handgun fell from the pants waist of one of the men, and as such, the rank held on to the man and the firearm. The firearm was examined and it was observed to be a .32 pistol with 1.32 live ammunition. He was arrested and then escorted to Alberton Police Station and placed into custody. Moreover, at the entrance of the show, where scanners were used, the police seized scissors, knives, and improvised weapons. Get the full details in today's Kaieteur News. And just before we head to a break, let's tell you that a woman is fighting for her life at the New Amsterdam Hospital after she was stabbed multiple times by an enraged ex-boyfriend on Saturday. The man later succumbed at the Fort Wellington Hospital after ingesting a noxious substance. Injured and in a critical state is Maria Singh, called Nalo. The dead man has been identified as 26-year-old Adrian Anthony Prasad, a cane harvester. He died at approximately 30 minutes after midnight on Sunday. Reports are that on the date in question at approximately 8 hours 20, Singh was in the front passenger seat of a car at the Sheriff's Service Station near the Rosignol Public Road when Prasad approached her and whipped out a knife, dealing her several stabs about her body before running away. Later, rangs found Prasad lying in the yard, vomiting near a bottle of a noxious substance. It is understood that the two shared a relationship for a year and 6 months, but ended it due to domestic problems. The time has now moved on to 12 hours 7 in Guyana. We'll take a short break and resume with the news.
This is GHK Lal inviting you to join me weekdays from Monday to Friday on the National Outlook for commentary on a range of issues. Immediately after the 12 noon and 7 p.m. newscasts on Kaieteur Radio at 99.1 FM and 99.5 FM. Looking forward to you sharing in the conversation.
Guyana, join me on the Glenn Lal Show every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 7:20 p.m. and a rebroadcast at 11 a.m. The Glenn Lal Show only on Kaieteur Radio, 99.1 and 99.5 FM.
Welcome back. Let us continue with the news. A 40-year-old carpenter is now in police custody after he killed an engineer on Sunday and seriously wounded another man around 7 hours 28. According to police, the dead engineer has been identified as 31-year-old Neil Ramprasad, and the severely wounded man's name was given as 42-year-old Mohan Panchu, both of Better Hope, East Coast, Demerara. He and Panchu got into an altercation first, and it led to him arming himself with a steel rod and stabbing the victim several times about the body. Not long after, police reported, Ramprasad told the man that he must go to the police station and turn himself in for wounding. As a result, they got into an argument when Ramprasad allegedly lashed the suspect twice. Police stated that the suspect was armed with a coconut blade at the time and used it to stab the engineer to his chest. Ramprasad died while receiving medical attention. Detectives have since arrested the carpenter. As tensions continue to rise with just 1 day left for government to make use of the Liza 1 permit renewal to secure better arrangements for its people, international lawyer Melinda Janke said that the offshore oil and gas operations should be shut down if the company refuses to comply with the laws of Guyana. Janke, a Guyanese-born attorney who has succeeded in litigations against the oil company before, argued that the Liza 1 permit should not be renewed as the operations pose grave harm to the environment. And moving on, civil society group Article 13 has joined the campaign led by the General Workers Union for a substantial increase in the national minimum wage for private sector workers in Guyana. The current national minimum wage of $255 an hour, $2,040 per day, $10,200 per week, and $44,200 per month was set in 2016 and became effective on January 1st, 2017. Prior to that date, the national private sector minimum wage of the equivalent of $202 per day was set in 2013 and took effect from July 1st. In a statement on Sunday, the organization said even as a standalone number, the national private sector minimum confines those affected groups to a life of poverty for them and their children, which cannot be remedied by any number of hampers or cash grants. Indeed, by its failure to address the problem of the minimum wage, the government is effectively subsidizing the employers who are relieved of their responsibility to pay their employees a just wage. And I'll just tell you, calls have not stopped for a commission of inquiry into the conduct of GCOM to explain the atrocities committed during the March 2020 regional and general polls that have so far caused 5 persons to face the courts. 2 years after the contentious election, there seems to be no move by GCOM to probe the events of the 5-month-long process, nor the government to commission a review into the events, despite President Ali making that promise following his ascension to head of state. Prominent Article 13 member Dr. Yog Mahadio has once again raised his voice in support of the probe into the 2020 matter. That has also called upon the government to do the same by fulfilling its earlier promise to look into the election fiasco. Dr. Mahadio is going even further, however, as he is currently penning letters to the international community for them to add their voices in lobbying the relevant authorities to have the probe conducted. In other news, an independent day outreach hosted at Naeem Soup Kitchen, located on Brigdam, Georgetown, was not only attended by the homeless persons but also working-class Guyanese who spoke about the hassle to access health care at the state-run Georgetown Public Hospital Corporation. 2 persons said that after hearing there was a medical outreach there, they rushed down to take advantage of the medical checkups because medicine at the pharmacies is very expensive, and if they go to the Georgetown Public Hospital, it will be a long wait and lots of push around. And now for your COVID-19 update, followed by the page 7 of today's Kaieteur News. The Ministry of Health on Sunday reported 52 new COVID-19 cases and that there are 3 patients still in the intensive care unit. According to its daily reporting, the ministry said too that the new cases now bring the total number of confirmed cases in Guyana to 64,617. 24 persons are in institutional isolation, 4 are quarantined institutionally, and 624 are in home isolation. To date, a total of 62,733 persons have recovered from the virus. Whether the Commission of Inquiry into the 2020 elections fiasco? After 5 torturous months of drama, deceit, and devastation over the March 2020 elections, one would have thought by now a full-blown investigation would have been conducted. After all, there have been claims and counterclaims about electoral malpractices, and though some folks have been hauled before the court, citizens are not convinced that we have gotten to the root of the problem that afflicts Guyana Elections Commission and what led to the fiasco back in 2020. On assuming office, none other than the president, Irfan Ali, told Guyanese that his government would launch a commission of inquiry into the disputed polls. 2 years later, 2 entire years later, both the PPPC government and the Guyana Elections Commission seem unconcerned about such an inquiry. This is a travesty and tragedy for this nation. Which serious, sensible, and stable country would allow this? Guyanese deserve better. And that brings us to the end of today's News at Noon. I'm Kevin Smith. Thank you for listening.
Want value for your advertising dollar? Then place your ads on Kaieteur Radio's Newscasts. Streamed live on 6 different mediums, reaching hundreds of thousands. Advertise today and watch your dollar grow. Call us on 225-8465 or 226-8210 today.